Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are HangingOnToHope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Karen W., and on today's podcast, we welcome Cheryl Wright. She has a new book out, Swimming with Alligators: How to Recognize Narcissistic Abuse, Break Unhealthy Bonds, and Unlock True Empowerment. You say that this project has been a deeply personal journey, one that I believe will resonate with many who have experienced the pain of toxic relationships without truly understanding what they were up against. And you write, over the years, I found myself entangled in relationships that were emotionally draining, manipulative, and quite frankly, damaging. At the time, I didn't realize that what I was dealing with was narcissistic abuse. But after learning about the insidious nature of narcissism and its impact on one's mental and emotional well-being, I made it my mission to not only escape, but to heal, rebuild, and thrive. And I think a lot of people will definitely be able to relate to that. So Thanks for coming onto the podcast. Do you want to start off by sharing a little bit of your background, Cheryl?
Yes, thank you, Karen. So first, I want to thank you both for having me as your guest today. My journey has been shaped by both personal experiences and a deep desire to help others. I have faced the pain of narcissistic abuse firsthand, and through those experiences, followed by copious amounts of research, I was eventually able to put a name to what I had experienced, and then subsequently learn how to navigate the complexities and often misunderstood dynamics of these types of relationships.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Cheryl. We got Cheryl in studio today.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And we've also got a special guest named Maple. She would not stop barking, so we've got her here.
Hope she behaves.
We'll see what happens. You say that your book is for anyone who feels trapped in toxic, unhealthy relationships and for those who may not even realize they are in one. Swimming with Alligators is a guide to recognizing narcissistic behaviors and emotional abuse and breaking free from unhealthy and damaging bonds, reclaiming your self-worth and building lasting empowerment. These all sound very helpful. Can you share some ways to recognize emotional abuse?
Certainly. Emotional abuse often involves very subtle tactics that may go unrecognized for some time, such as gaslighting, where someone continually manipulates you into doubting your own reality. Other signs may include things like constant criticism, isolation from friends and loved ones, controlling behaviors, and the use of guilt or shame in order to maintain power over you. For you, this might be accompanied by this feeling of walking on eggshells as you keep anticipating the next outburst or manipulation. So recognizing these patterns is the first step towards breaking free from this type of toxic relationship.
Yeah, and we did a podcast not too long ago on gaslighting specifically, so that's definitely a good thing for people to get educated on.
And I definitely know how it feels to walk on eggshells. I still feel like that a lot with some people. I should just take that as a sign. Should never feel like that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we've done a podcast on narcissism with Chuck DeGroat, but can you share some characteristics of a narcissist?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a wide variety of traits that can fall under the category of narcissism, though there are some very common characteristics that include mainly a sense of entitlement or self-importance, a lack of empathy, that's a huge one, a lack of empathy, manipulative tendencies, and a need for excessive admiration. There's only literally about maybe 0.5% of the population that officially gets classified with the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, but there's a larger number of people that can fall anywhere on the spectrum of narcissism that may go undiagnosed.
That's right. We've talked about that before. It is something you want to get diagnosed, right?
Yeah, some narcissists can appear quite charming or altruistic at first, but their actions are typically driven by self-interest. In my book, I discuss several subtypes like malignant, cerebral, communal, and spiritual narcissist, each of which display their own unique traits. And understanding these traits can help people to recognize the specific dynamics that they might be dealing with in any given relationship.
So what was one of the turning points in your relationship?
Thank you for that question. I believe that most of us, or at least for most of us, there's some sort of catalyst, a moment when we wake up and realize that something is deeply wrong. For me, in one relationship, a key pivotal moment was when a partner I was seeing at the time came home after drinking and woke me up to argue and then screamed at me, "You don't deserve to be loved." And something in me shifted in that moment. And without any hesitation at all, I responded, "Jesus loves me whether I deserve it or not." And I walked out. That moment gave me total clarity and strength. And I didn't say another word. I just walked out.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for you. Wish I had done that.
This book shares your personal story of survival and growth, along with actionable steps and insights for those seeking to escape narcissistic relationships, understand their experiences, and emerge stronger. You say if you or someone you know is struggling to break free from toxic relationships, this book offers knowledge and strategies to create real change and move towards a healthier, empowered life. You say, I believe swimming with alligators can have a profound effect on anyone trapped in these type of cycles, helping to unlock the freedom they deserve. Did you want to share some ways that people can be trapped in these type of cycles?
Yeah, absolutely. So the cycle of abuse consists of 4 main phases. The first phase is the idealization or the love bombing phase. This is where someone is going to shower you with gifts and attention and future promises and very grand gestures to win you over. If you find yourself thinking, this is too good to be true, take that like it probably is.
Yeah.
Then that is very often followed by devaluation. This is where they begin to abuse you through criticisms, passive aggressiveness, isolation, the silent treatment, gaslighting, which we've talked about. Anything essentially to put you down and make you doubt yourself. After that, you may end up in the discard phase. This might be where they cruelly break it off with you and you're left wondering, what on earth just happened? The discard phase could also be you breaking up with them because you've had enough. But they will then, either way, quickly turn it into the reconciliation or the hoovering, where they attempt to hoover you back in. And they often do that by starting the idealization phase all over again. So they may start apologizing, promising to change. They tell you what you want to hear, but then they love bomb you all over again. And you get that reward. And you feel like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where I want. This is what the feel good part. And so you get trapped in this cycle of emotional dependency, and it makes it hard to leave. Victims often cling to the hope of returning to this idealization phase over and over and over again. And that's part of that manipulative dynamic that just keeps you hooked.
So I had a question for you. Do you think that being criticized, if someone criticizes you in general, even if it's just a friend, you feel like somebody has to constantly criticize you? Do you feel like that's, like, what would you call that? You know, I feel like I'm criticized by a lot of people. And then I think, can you just, sometimes I have to tell them, can you stop criticizing me? It's not, what is the point of this? You know,
there's constructive criticism, which is different than just criticizing someone, right? And a constructive criticism is usually handled with love and a desire to help you improve, not to put you down.
And if you do that, tell them then this is constructive criticism. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah. Well, then, and there's,
the person feel bad.
You can be tactful in the ways that you can deliver constructive criticism. Yeah. It could be something like, I really like the way you handled that questioning, but maybe if you asked it in this way, it could be better.
Yeah.
Something like that, instead of just like, you suck at asking questions.
Yeah.
There's a way to tactfully say that. Speaking the truth in love.
Yeah, I don't know. That was the first thought I had, and then I had another question. I think for me, I was with a sociopath and a narcissist for 22 years, and before that, I grew up in a family that wasn't like that at all. They weren't controlling, they weren't abusive, they just were unemotional. So I went from not really knowing that people like that existed to marrying one because I was controlled and abused and love bombed into it, and he threatened suicide, and then at marrying him, but we had kids so quickly that I felt stuck. And then I think what you don't realize that happens, though, is the longer that you're married to someone like that, the more it feels normal. You just don't know anything else. So I notice as I've gotten out, I'll gravitate towards a similar temperament, and it unfazes me where other people are like, can't you see how that person is? Can't you see? And to me, it's like, I'm so used to that. And until it's like, till there's too much damage that's been done. And like you talked about at the beginning where, you know, you feel like you're walking on eggshells and you're fully drained and you're just, they're just draining you. And I don't know. I think I'm learning as I've gotten, it's been like 6 years, but it's really, really difficult. I would recommend anybody, like, as soon as you realize you're in an abusive marriage, I know it's hard with children and all that, but just to get out, because the longer you're in it, it changes you too.
Yeah.
And then I don't even know what normal is anymore. Like, my therapist she's just as confused as me. Like, she's constantly trying to help me. She feels so bad, but I'm not sure if I know any different now. Like, I'm starting to see, oh, this is a good person or this isn't, but I end up gravitating towards the stuff I shouldn't and allow people to mistreat me and stomp all over me.
It's not uncommon to get stuck in that kind of a cycle as well. So I grew up in an environment, and I'm not going to call it wasn't physically abusive, but it was neglectful, if you will.
Okay.
So I didn't have any value in myself from a very, very young age. And so it was very easy to be manipulated by other people, to be love bombed.
Right.
Right. And then the devaluation starts, and you actually spend all that time questioning yourself and feeling that you actually can't do any better. Like, I was actually told that no one will ever love you like I do. And if I hear those words now, I walk away.
Yeah. See, and I still struggle with the not valuing myself. I didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah, the second part of my book is actually where I dive into a lot of that. So the first half is really dedicated towards recognizing the signs. And I was surprised how many chapters I actually took to recognize what was happening. You have to recognize the signs and of all the different types of narcissism, but then you also have to recognize what it does to you. So if you start paying attention to your body and your thoughts, you can start recognizing, oh, this is something that I'm feeling in my body that doesn't feel right. You start to recognize that. And then the second half of the book is really strategies that you can utilize to develop your self-identity, become empowered.
Yeah, that's what I need.
And develop that strength to rebuild your own self, rebuild your self-identity.
That's good. That's good.
It probably did a lot of good for you to do the research even. I mean, you already were familiar with it because you've had a lot of growth, but to me, research helps, you understand because you start connecting the dots.
Yeah. As I was going through the book, I cite well over 200 and some resources in the book. So I did a tremendous amount of research.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you say in your book, narcissistic abuse often damages self-esteem and self-worth. That I can attest to. Successfully engaging in and completing mentally challenging tasks can boost confidence and provide a sense of accomplishment, helping to rebuild a positive self-image. Can you share some things you did that helped you boost your confidence? Yeah. So for myself, I love to learn. And probably most people do, actually. Yeah. And pursuing new challenges is what played a huge role in rebuilding my confidence. And in the research I've done, and even in my own experiences, the more challenging the task, the more accomplished you feel. So I studied to become a life coach, which was a huge thing for me. That really helped. That gave me a lot of practice of working with other people and learning how to ask questions and then actually doing the work to answer questions and diving deep, right? And so that was very, very healing for me to do that. But then I tried a whole slew of new activities. I took welding classes. I took plasma cutting classes, forge and foundry classes.
What's plasma cutting?
Plasma cutting is using a very hot plasma torch to cut through metal.
Oh, wow.
And it accompanies welding a lot. So you might cut pieces of metal and then weld them back together in various patterns. And
I thought you were like talking about the plasma in your body.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
No, I'm not cutting my body plasma. I love that.
I wasn't familiar with that term.
I'm like, how do you do that?
I love that. But I also did classes on ceramics, like throwing the clay on the wheel. And so just doing things, physically doing things, really gave me this sense of I can do a lot more.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say there's 2 activities that I did that really helped me the most significantly. One of them was joining Toastmasters and learning how to speak. Like, I always felt that I never had a voice. Like, I felt like I was born without a voice. I never was able to speak up for myself.
I can relate to that too.
And so doing Toastmasters really helped push me beyond that comfort zone, but in a safe environment. So I was learning to do public speaking and taking on leadership roles. And within a couple of years, I actually grew to enjoy it. And I would have never thought that I would enjoy public speaking.
Yeah.
So Toastmasters is a public speaking course?
It is public speaking and
I
leadership.
never heard of it.
You never heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Come with me. I'll take you with me to
You
a
still
Toastmasters
go?
meeting. I do.
I
still go.
I took public speaking in college, and he gave me an A, but I think he just felt sorry for me. I was like, shaking. Yeah. And he was like, okay, this poor thing.
No, I love Toastmasters, the way that it's structured. In every meeting, everyone has roles. And so everyone is speaking. So you never feel like you're singled out. You're never just the only person in the room that's speaking.
Yeah, my kids did, because they did a homeschool. We had one for when they were like preteens that they did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
they gave them like good, like you were talking about, constructive criticism. So it wasn't like, you did this wrong, but it made them feel good.
Yeah, they use the sandwich method for feedback, which is you say the positive things, then you throw in like one or two things you can improve, and then you end with positive things. That's called the sandwich method. And it's a very good way to offer feedback.
It seemed like it worked, because I'm watching you and I'm like, man, she's good.
Thank you. Okay, but the second thing that I did, and this is probably the most transformative thing that I ever did, was I started pole dancing. And that was so hard for me in the beginning. And I'm really glad I went to a studio where there's no mirrors. The lights are down low. This is all about learning how to really get in touch with your own body and move in a sensual way and learn to pole dance and develop strength, but it's not in a grotesque and,
it's not in front of people.
No, it's only women, and it's in a dark room.
Okay. Okay. So this is something for you. I got it.
Something for me. And
because the men listening probably would have been like,
wow, can we go watch?
No, sorry. This is a women-only studio.
I do have a lot of male listeners, too. Trust me, they tell me. Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, no, this has been a wonderful experience. And it was so challenging for me that the very first class I took, I was so glad the lights were down, because I cried for the entire class. It was a 90-minute class. And
is it kind of like yoga, where they have you like get in touch with your body? And
you do, yeah. And so it was really hard for me to move physically, because I hadn't done that in a long time.
Yeah.
But it was also just really hard for me with the whole idea of being where I was, and how, everyone having these ideas of what they think it is and what it is.
Yeah.
Right? So I continued going there because I recognized that there was a challenge I needed to overcome. So I kept going, and
I'll be honest, I really didn't have any idea that's what you were going to say. I
know I was going to wait for your reaction.
I'm still like a little shocked. I was like, is she for real? Like pole dancing?
And now I'm a teacher.
Oh, you are?
I know. I told her I want to take a class. Well, she's going to have her book launch party at the dance studio.
I am. I'm going to have my book launch party at the dance studio, so you can come and check it out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I just can't picture it, but it's okay.
I think it's great. It's just something different.
Yeah.
And it gave you confidence, because I remember when you were telling me about it, when you were going through the classes, I think when we were still in touch, and I remember I was like, wow,
Yeah. That gave me, that is what helped me to be okay with my own body. I hated my own body. Even though I was in relationships and they were like, oh, you're so pretty or whatever, or touching you inappropriately, I can't help it, all those stupid lines that you might hear. So I hated my body. And going to the studio and learning, it showed me that my body is powerful, and I'm strong, way stronger than I thought I was. And that's what I learned from going through that. So I don't have these body image issues that I used to have.
That's great.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, no one would ever think that something like that could give it to you, but that's great.
My first thought is when she said she did it, it would make me think of I couldn't barely lift myself up probably, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty weak.
They must start out pretty slow.
Yeah, you're going to start out at a beginner level, and then you can progress through levels that are going to get harder and more challenging as you build up the strength and the...
Yeah. I know. I want to take a class now.
So can you swirl around on it now and everything?
Yeah, I can spin around.
See, that does seem a little bit fun.
Yeah.
Swirling around.
And I was asking her, what do you wear?
I wear shorts. I wear shorts and a a tank top mostly.
You don't dress like J-Lo did?
No, I don't.
You'll have to come dressed like J-Lo.
Sure. Oh, anyway,
Oh, that's funny.
where are we at?
No, I think it's mine. So it's mine. So in your book, you say, when discussing boundaries, people tend to think of something we set for or around other people, which is only partially true. The reality is that we set boundary for ourselves. Setting boundaries helps you to determine and honor your own needs, feelings, values, and goals. You decide how you want to be treated. Setting and enforcing boundaries can help you gain confidence while also protecting yourself from those who may attempt to disrespect or violate your boundaries. That's so true. Boundaries are huge for me. I've read all the boundaries books. I have them all underlined and highlighted, and I just can't get that information enough because I struggle with that.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of deciding, like you said, how people will treat you. So did you want to share more about boundaries?
Sure. And I think boundaries is something that many of us struggle with.
Yeah.
And especially as women, because we're taught to be amenable and we're taught to not say no and we're, things like that. So boundaries are critical. The thing about boundaries is recognizing that there are as much for you, if not more for you than they are for others. Right?
Yeah.
This is about you honoring your own needs and feelings and values. It's not just about telling others what they can or can't do, but this is deciding for yourself that you will or won't tolerate. This is what I'm willing to accept or not accept for myself. And by enforcing these boundaries, you actually take care of your own well-being while you are teaching others how to treat you. This is an act of self-empowerment and respect. It's not just about telling someone else you can't do this. This is about I'm honoring myself. I respect myself enough to say, this is what I will or won't tolerate.
Mm-hmm. It's very well said, and it's very important. I've had to do it with friendships, and it's hard to do, but it's very much because I like what you said. I started getting feelings like this doesn't feel healthy on my end, Yeah. So, and they're hard to do because you feel it's hard to have those discussions.
Right.
But then when you do, it either saves or breaks, I guess, the relationship.
Well, and one of the things, and I mentioned it in the book too, is that I think how you phrase things is critically important. So I say, always say what you want, not what you don't want. Because if you say what you don't want, you're going to get it. Mm-hmm. If you say, don't slam the door, they're going to slam the door. Mm. But if instead you say, please close the door softly, they know exactly what you want. You've made it clear what you want. You're more likely to get it. So I always try to phrase things in a positive way. This is what I want.
Interesting.
Plus, it probably comes across better because it's more of a positive thing and not, sounding negative.
Right.
Good advice.
I'll set the boundary and then some reason I don't stick with it. And then to the point where I'm about to crash and burn. And then I'm like, okay, I need to set this boundary again to save my own life. Mm-hmm. And that's when you waited too long.
True.
Yeah.
Very
but
true.
I do that. I still do it. So
I'm certainly guilty of that myself at times too. But, as soon as you recognize it, bring it in again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just that self-awareness too.
All right. What are some specific steps that you took to heal?
So my healing journey was very long and very multifaceted. I mean, it's been a lifelong journey, right? I've been dealing with negative challenges since I was very young. I sought therapy. For me, that wasn't as helpful. I read a ton of books. I've worked with coaches. I definitely like working with coaches. That's probably one of my favorites, is to work with a coach. It's a very different mindset and approach to when you're dealing with something.
How many coaches did you work with? Like more than one, or?
Oh yeah, I've worked with a number of coaches for different things.
Yeah.
Specifically. Yeah. And then of course, when I studied life coaching, then we took turns with each other. So I have worked with a lot of different coaches. I still work with coaches.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I will probably always work with coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
All of these things that I did were to understand the patterns that I was caught in, right? It's all about recognizing patterns of what's happening so to hopefully avoid repeating those patterns.
Yes.
Journaling was another key tool to help me process my emotions and reflect on my experiences. I have an entire chapter dedicated to journaling. There's many different ways to journal. And for me, it used to be I only journaled when I was mad because I had to get it out of my head. If I didn't get it out of my head, I would ruminate on it. So I would write it down just to know I had it on paper and I didn't have to hold it in my head anymore.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big journaler, so.
Very helpful.
Yeah, I don't like journaling because I don't like writing. I realize, like with my hand, starts to hurt or whatever.
Well, now I do it by typing.
Yeah. Yeah, or you can speak into your phone.
Yeah,
or
you
whatever.
Or that
do
too.
it.
I actually do that too.
Yeah.
I speak notes to myself on my
Yeah.
phone all the time.
See that? Now we're giving you different things you can do
Yeah,
if you're
you
like
don't-
me.
Right. You don't
Yeah.
have to write.
Because I start writing and I notice I'll just write half the word or like shorten a sentence because I'm like, I'm like writing this entire thing out.
Yeah.
So
There is something to be said for the process of using a pen and paper.
Mhm.
I will acknowledge that. And in the book, I think I talk about 4 different styles of journaling for different purposes.
okay.
So it's really
Wow.
interesting. When I started researching journaling, I didn't realize how many ways there are to journal, but
Yeah,
pretty impressive.
I'm glad you did all this research for me. I'm glad you did 10,000
Yeah.
pages of research for me because I didn't do it.
Well, journaling
Yeah.
to me is sanity because I always have so many thoughts
Mhm.
and it feels chaotic in
Yeah.
my brain. So journaling helps me sort out what's important, what am I overthinking on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I also found strength in my community. So connecting with others who had faced similar challenges is very meaningful. So we are people that need to live in community. We
Yeah.
are not to be lone wolves. We aren't.
Agreed.
We're not designed that way.
Agreed.
Right. So finding a community. And for me, that was Toastmasters, that was the pole studio, that was, maybe my church group, things like that. So I found communities in which I could bond with people over similarities or, similar experiences or whatnot. And then also engaging in physical activities. There's a section in the book where I talk about doing somatic exercises or somatic activities. And somatic basically means moving your body in an intentional way with a focus from your mind. So you're like paying attention with your mind to what you're doing physically.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that through yoga. You can do that through, somatic exercises, dancing. There's a lot of different ways. And so that is something that can really help you to get in touch with your body. And
Yeah, I know there's like the psoas release, which I got trained in, but there's a lot of other things too, I'm sure.
yeah,
The vagus nerve and
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So doing those physical somatic exercises is something that was incredibly helpful. And then the last thing is leaning on my faith. Leaning on my faith is one of the things that also just gave me hope and a sense of purpose throughout the process of healing. I think everybody has faith of some sort. It might not always be in the same
Yeah.
God, but there has to be some faith of something, whether,
Right.
Whatever that might look like. My faith was in Jesus, and that's who I decided to rely on for feeling valued as a person in the eyes of God.
Yeah. I think it's super important.
Yeah.
As part of the healing, you can't leave out that spiritual aspect of healing. It just, you don't get anywhere.
Mm.
That's what I realized. But as far as exercise, so you said somatic, but like, I don't think I do a whole lot of somatic exercise, but any exercise does help, right?
Any exercise helps. The somatic aspect of it is just when you're bringing in the conscious part of really paying attention to what you're doing.
Okay.
It does help a lot.
So if you're lifting weights, you can focus on that body part then that
Yeah.
you're lifting on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We don't want to discourage anybody from working. Well, I'm not doing somatic. I'm not going to work out anymore.
No, all exercise is helpful.
Yeah.
And getting out in the sun and getting some vitamin D is very helpful.
Yeah.
Just the serotonin, like, how you feel when you, after you do a good workout. I feel so much better
Yeah,
Mhm.
after I've had a workout.
absolutely.
And I had one last question. So you said you got to be in groups that you had something in common with. Did you feel like you had a lot of commonality with the pole dancers?
Absolutely.
Like, were they in the same state of mind? Were they going there for the same reason as you were? Or?
There's a huge variety of women that go to the studio. I mean, all ages and all sizes and shapes and backgrounds.
I just
And-
never have. You're the first person I ever met that did it for like healing.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is our first pole dancing healing podcast.
Yeah. So at the studio where I go, once
Interesting.
once a quarter, we have a soiree and we open up for invite people to come. I'm going to invite you to the next soiree.
Oh my gosh.
And you will get to hear from some of the other teachers. And some of us have very similar experiences where we were down or we were depressed or we were feeling bad about ourselves or whatever, and how pole dancing changed our lives.
I definitely feel bad about myself. So I'm like, is this what I need?
Come on.
All right. Maybe.
I want to try it, so we'll go together.
I might watch. I don't know if we're going to do it, but.
Well, she said the lights are out, so what do we got to lose?
They're not lights.
No lights.
Okay.
No mirrors.
So if it's dark, I'll do it.
So is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I just really want to emphasize that healing is possible. No matter how broken or stuck you feel, you can reclaim your life. And it may take some time and effort, but every step is worth it. So my hope is that my book, Swimming with Alligators, will serve as a beacon for anyone who feels lost in the chaos of narcissistic relationships. And to remember that you're not alone and you're stronger than you think.
Yeah, very good. Everyone needs that validation that you're not crazy and that you're not alone, like you were saying.
Yeah,
definitely.
And you are worth it.
Yeah. Very good advice.
I need to work on all this stuff, so I'm going to buy your book. So how can our listeners buy your book and follow you on social media?
Yeah, thank you. So the book is available on Amazon in both the ebook and paperback formats. And for a limited time, the ebook is just 99 cents.
Okay.
And the paperback is $9.99. You can connect with me through my website, swimmingwithalligators.com. You can follow me through social media, including Facebook and Instagram, also with the name Swimming with Alligators, and LinkedIn by my name.
That's great that you got a website and everything.
Yeah. Still working on it.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's just been inspirational to me for us to catch up and just to see your whole progress and where you're at now. It inspires me, just to keep growing and keep working on it. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very grateful for the work that you guys are doing with Hanging On to Hope to help so many people overcoming their pasts with abuse and whatnot. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, what inspires me so much is that it's just crazy how many people have been abused, are exposed to abuse, and how much it's being talked about now, and how much more help there is out there now.
Yeah, there's a lot more resources.
We should be treated well.
Yes.
And we should feel value, and we should feel good about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And years and years and years later, we still struggle with those things because we allowed ourselves to be not treated right. So thank you for what you just did.
Thank you.
I can't wait to read your book and get to the help that I need from it.
Thank you.
And she did it all for me. I'm like, oh, thank you. That was really nice.
I think she should just be our mother and take care of us.
I know. She's got all these helpful ideas.
Come on, my little ducklings.
Oh, this is what it's like to have a coach. Okay, you're hired.
I know. I need a coach. I never really thought about that, but I mean, there is a difference between a counselor, because a counselor just kind of tells you what you're doing wrong, maybe. I mean, but they give you insight, but a coach is kind of coming alongside you more, right?
For me, the difference is that a counselor most often is looking at the past to see what happened to bring you to where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A coach might not even care about that.
Yeah.
A coach is like, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And how do we get you there?
Yeah.
It's more future focused.
Approach.
Yeah. I've never done a life coach, but you made me just hearing you. I'm like, I think I might need to try a life coach.
And there's certainly value in both. Like I'm not negating the need for
I'm very
counseling,
thankful for all my counseling. Yeah.
No, I did. I had a coach when I first got out, and he was really good because the focus, I had to make some really big life decisions because I retired from my job. Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out what I was interested in, what I wanted to do. It was a completely different approach as all the counseling I went through. Mm-hmm. It was focused on the past and my childhood and healing and the EMDR and everything. But a coach was completely different because they're just helping you reach your goals. And yeah. But I liked it. But the one I had wasn't trauma trained. So it made it really, really hard for me.
Okay.
So
I'm doing that right now. I'm actually studying trauma-informed coaching at the moment.
They were just like, suck it up and press in harder. And I was like, I got PTSD. Like, this isn't really working that well. Some of it's working, but not all of it. So that was what I had.
That's an important piece. Yeah. The trauma.
It's just how to handle each person.
Yeah. Well, in addition to the book, I do offer coaching as well. And hopefully I'll be able to do some speaking about this because I'd really like to do that more.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have you on again. All right. Thank you.
That's great.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
It was fun. These all sound very helpful. That sounded fake. These all sound very helpful. Let me try that again. I'm just kidding. I'm losing focus because of the dog. I'm sorry. I was like, had two thoughts. I wanted to respond, and I'm like, is she going to eat something over there that she shouldn't be chewing on?
Or should I keep talking?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm trying to see if I want to turn you up.
Hello, and thank you for turning into the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Karen. Do you edit out that too? Because I hear the like all those little saliva sounds in the mouth. You know, when you
I will. I do cut everything.
Okay,
I cut everything.
I've never heard that before, but now that it's in my ear, I'm like,
you have no idea the stuff I cut out.
Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening, and until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.